Silence isn't empty, it's filled with answers. Welcome to a journey where we'll explore how the art of silence can transform your life in ways you never imagined possible. In a world constantly demanding your voice, your opinions, and your reactions, I'll show you why the most powerful response is often no response at all. The greatest achievers throughout history mastered the power of silence before they conquered their domains. Today, we'll uncover 5 profound principles that will revolutionize your relationships, amplify your inner wisdom, and magnetize success into your life. These aren't just concepts, they're practical tools that have transformed countless lives, including my own. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by noise, both external and internal, and yearned for clarity and direction, this message is specifically for you. Stay with me until the end, because the final principle ties everything together in a way that might just change your life forever. 5 key notes on Be Silent. You will get everything in your life. Silence is not the absence of action, but the foundation of meaningful action. When we choose to be silent, we create space for clarity and insight that hasty words and reactions often destroy. This strategic silence operates as a force multiplier in our lives, amplifying our effectiveness and influence. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus understood this when he said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." This isn't mere poetry, it's practical wisdom. In silence, we receive information that constant talkers miss. In business negotiations, relationships, and personal development, those who master strategic silence gain an almost supernatural advantage. Consider how often problems solve themselves when we resist the urge to intervene prematurely. How many arguments escalate because we couldn't resist having the last word? How many opportunities slip away because we revealed our position too soon? The practice of strategic silence requires tremendous self-discipline, yet it yields disproportionate rewards. The Japanese concept of ma, the meaningful space between elements, teaches us that what isn't said often carries more power than what is. This space isn't empty but pregnant with possibility. When you master strategic silence, you become like the conductor who knows the power of the pause between notes in a symphony. You recognize that timing is everything. In a world where everyone competes to be heard, the silent observer sees patterns others miss. They speak only when their words will add genuine value, making their voice a rare and precious commodity. Their silence isn't weakness but wisdom, not passivity but patience. They understand that some battles are won not by fighting but by refusing to engage at all. The practice of strategic silence begins with a simple question before speaking: is this necessary? This filter alone can transform your effectiveness in every domain of life. When you eliminate unnecessary speech, what remains carries exponential impact. Your words become like rare currency, valued precisely because you don't distribute them carelessly. Deep within the chambers of silence lies the most valuable knowledge of all, self-knowledge. When we quiet the external noise and our internal chatter, we connect with our authentic voice, desires, and purpose. This connection becomes the compass that guides all meaningful achievement. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote in his Meditations, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This retreat isn't escapism but essential reconnection. In our hyper-connected world, we've normalized constant distraction and externalized our attention. The practice of silence reverses this process, bringing us back to the center from which all genuine achievement springs. The modern mind resists silence because silence forces confrontation with uncomfortable truths, our fears, unprocessed emotions, and unfulfilled potential. Yet this very discomfort signals the importance of the practice. What we avoid most often contains what we most need to address. When we sit in silence, the initial discomfort gradually transforms into profound clarity as the sediment of mental chatter settles. This silence-born self-knowledge creates an unshakable foundation for decision-making. Rather than being swayed by external opinions or temporary emotions, you operate from a place of inner certainty. You recognize which opportunities align with your core values and which merely distract from your true path. This discernment becomes increasingly valuable in a world overflowing with options but starving for wisdom. The practice of silence allows your subconscious mind, which processes information at vastly greater speeds than your conscious mind, to integrate and synthesize knowledge in ways that active thinking cannot match. Many of history's greatest insights and innovations emerged not from frantic activity but from periods of silence and reflection. Einstein visualized riding on a beam of light. Newton contemplated under an apple tree. These weren't idle daydreams but powerful instances of silent processing. By cultivating regular periods of silence in your life, you create the conditions for similar breakthroughs. The solutions to your most persistent problems often emerge not when you're actively struggling with them, but when you've created space for your deeper wisdom to emerge. This is why many successful people guard their silent time as their most precious resource. They understand its irreplaceable value in revealing who they are and what they're meant to contribute. True listening, the kind born of genuine silence, creates a magnetic field that naturally draws opportunities, relationships, and insights toward you. This magnetism operates according to a paradoxical principle. The less you strive to be heard, the more others want to hear from you. The ancient Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu observed, "Silence is a source of great strength." This strength manifests most powerfully in how it transforms our relationships. When we truly listen, not merely waiting for our turn to speak but entering a state of receptive silence, we communicate something profound: you matter. Your thoughts have value. This silent message creates a connection deeper than words could achieve. In professional contexts, the power of listening confers tremendous advantage. While others reveal their positions, limitations, and desires through constant talking, the skilled listener gathers intelligence that informs strategic decision-making. They understand that in negotiation, the first person to speak often loses advantage. In leadership, the one who listens before directing earns both respect and accurate information. In sales, the one who understands needs before presenting solutions consistently outperforms those who merely pitch. This magnetic listening extends beyond human relationships to the universe itself. When we quiet our mental chatter, we become attuned to subtle signals, patterns, and opportunities invisible to the distracted mind. We notice the unsaid in conversations, the emerging trends in markets, the unmet needs in communities. These observations become the seeds of innovation and opportunity. The silence of genuine listening also creates space for others to reach their own insights. Rather than imposing our solutions, we ask thoughtful questions and allow the silence that follows to work its magic. In these pregnant pauses, people often discover their own answers and feel ownership of the resulting insights in ways that external advice could never achieve. This practice requires overcoming our ego's constant demand for validation through speech. It requires the humility to recognize that we learn nothing while speaking about what we already know, but can learn everything by listening to perspectives different from our own. This humble silence becomes a powerful attractor of wisdom and opportunity. Perhaps the most powerful application of silence comes in moments of chaos, conflict, and provocation. The ability to remain silent when others expect reaction creates a force field that protects your energy and transforms potentially destructive situations into opportunities for growth. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher who faced exile and death threats, understood this when he wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." This delay, this strategic silence, prevents us from becoming entangled in others' emotional states or agendas. It preserves our freedom to choose our response rather than being manipulated into reaction. Consider how rare this capacity has become in our reactive culture. Social media algorithms reward immediate emotional responses. Politics thrives on outrage. Even in personal relationships, we've normalized instant reactions rather than thoughtful responses. The person who maintains silence amidst this chaos immediately distinguishes themselves as operating on a different level, a level of self-mastery that commands respect. This silence in the face of provocation isn't passive, it's intensely active. It requires overriding powerful neurological impulses to defend, attack, or justify. It demands presence and awareness precisely when these qualities are most difficult to maintain. Yet this is exactly why it's so powerful, because few achieve this level of self-governance. When others attempt to provoke you into reaction, your silence communicates something profound. I choose my responses based on my values, not your provocations. This message disrupts the cycle of reactivity and often causes the provocateur to re-evaluate their approach. Your silence becomes a mirror reflecting their behavior back to them, creating space for genuine communication to replace manipulation. This practice extends to how we respond to life's inevitable chaos and disappointments. When plans fail, when expectations are violated, when uncertainty reigns, these are precisely the moments when our silence becomes most valuable. Rather than adding to the chaos with premature conclusions or emotional reactions, we create space to perceive the hidden opportunities within apparent disaster. The wisdom traditions across cultures recognize that our greatest growth often emerges from our response to difficulty. By meeting challenges with silence before action, we access resources of creativity and resilience that reactive responses obscure. We discover that many problems solve themselves when we refuse to energize them with our anxiety and resistance. The ultimate mastery of silence isn't permanent quietude, but rather discovering the sacred rhythm between silence and expression. This rhythm, knowing precisely when to remain silent and when to speak, becomes the conductor's baton orchestrating a life of meaning, impact, and fulfillment. The philosopher Wittgenstein concluded his famous Tractatus with the line, "Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent." This boundary, knowing the limits of what can be meaningfully expressed, marks the beginning of wisdom. The master of silence recognizes that some truths can only be discovered in wordless contemplation, while others must be articulated with precision and courage. The most impactful communicators throughout history understood this rhythm. They spoke not from compulsion but from overflow, when silence had filled them with something worth expressing. Their words carried weight precisely because they emerged from depths of silent contemplation. When they spoke, people listened because their words weren't merely recycled opinions but fresh insights born of authentic connection to source. This rhythm manifests differently across various domains of life. In creative pursuits, periods of silent receptivity alternate with bursts of expressive output. In relationships, deep listening creates the foundation for meaningful exchange. In spiritual practice, silence opens channels to wisdom that words later attempt to convey. In leadership, quiet observation precedes decisive direction. The practice involves developing sensitivity to the quality of silence within yourself. Some silence feels pregnant with emerging insight, requiring only patience before expression. Other silence signals that a question needs deeper contemplation before any answer would be premature. By honoring these different qualities of silence, you align your expression with natural timing rather than artificial urgency. This rhythm requires overcoming our culture's bias toward constant production and expression. We're conditioned to believe that value comes only through visible output, words, actions, measurable results. The sacred rhythm teaches us that the invisible, silent phases of the cycle are equally essential. The fallow field isn't unproductive, it's regenerating for future abundance. By embracing this rhythm, you discover that silence isn't the absence of achievement but its essential foundation. The words you eventually speak carry power precisely because they emerge from this foundation. Your actions demonstrate unusual effectiveness because they spring from clarity rather than reaction. Your presence communicates depths that words alone could never express. In embracing the power of silence, we don't retreat from life. We engage with it more fully, more authentically, and more effectively. The 5 principles we've explored today form a pathway to mastery in both achievement and fulfillment. Strategic silence that creates advantage, self-knowledge that provides direction, listening that attracts opportunity, non-reaction that preserves power, and the sacred rhythm that orchestrates it all. This practice isn't easy in a world that rewards noise and instant gratification. It requires swimming against powerful cultural currents. Yet this is precisely why it creates such extraordinary advantage for those courageous enough to embrace it. The silence we cultivate isn't empty, it's full of potential, wisdom, and power. It creates space for what matters most to emerge. It allows us to hear the whispers of intuition that point toward our greatest contributions. It enables us to respond to life from our center rather than our edges. I invite you to begin today. Find moments to practice intentional silence. Notice what emerges when you resist the urge to fill every moment with sound and activity. Pay attention to how your relationships transform when you truly listen. Observe how your decisions improve when they emerge from silent clarity rather than reactive impulse. Remember that this journey isn't about becoming silent all the time. It's about discovering the sacred rhythm between silence and expression that makes both infinitely more powerful. It's about speaking when your words will add genuine value and remaining silent when silence itself is the most eloquent response. Thank you for your presence and attention today. In a world filled with endless distractions, the gift of your focused attention is something I deeply appreciate. If something in this message resonated with you, I invite you to sit with it in silence rather than immediately sharing or commenting. Let it work on you first. The journey we've discussed today isn't a destination but a practice, one that deepens with each day of conscious application. I'm honored to walk this path alongside you, and I look forward to hearing how these principles manifest in your unique journey. Until we meet again, may you find strength in silence and wisdom in the spaces between your thoughts.